Threat for all hazards, including damaging wind and hail.
From St. Louis to Chicago, it is going to be a rough commute this morning. Anything that you're trying to get in, next couple of hours, it's going to feature rain.
These are not your typical morning thunderstorms.
No, they're pretty powerful.
Yeah, especially the ones around the St. Louis area and tracking down through that area. So we'll be tracking thunderstorms. This is not the only round that we will see today either.
No, that's the thing. Not only are we going to see multiple rounds, that really ramps up the flash flooding threat too, which so many of these areas, they're weary of the flash flooding. We're super saturated at this point.
It seems like every thunderstorm is a big downpour these days here. That was the case over the weekend. We're going to recap what has happened and also show you what this will do and then where the new thunderstorms will fire up today. We're also tracking the fire threat and the smoke from that threat that actually is so widespread. Of course, the fires in California and Washington and Oregon and into Canada, but there's no fire here in Jackson, Wyoming, but you can see a hazy look to the sky.
The sun coming up, and sometimes when you have the sun coming up and, you know, the beams going through some of the smoke, it can create these beautiful colors, but at the same time, it's very hazy. The air quality is awful, especially if you already have lung issues or heart issues. It just becomes all the more dangerous.
It's an issue here. Actually, it's an issue all the way through parts of the Midwest, like into Minnesota, and even in the Northeast, and even parts of the Southeast. Some of that smoke is kind of circling around and affecting your visibility.
And this is all stemming from multiple fires in the West. Of course, one of the biggest right now is in California, near Chico, California.
The Park Fire up over 350,000 acres here. Not a high containment. We'll talk more about what's going on there with the weather today. We did finally get a bit of a break in the weather this weekend here, and we'll see if that's going to last.
Let's head to the tropics right now because % containment. That number has been going up, so at least that's some good news. But to put this into perspective, you know, you hear 360,000 acres, and you're like, okay, how can I picture that? That's bigger than the footprint of Los Angeles. It's bigger than the footprint of Phoenix. So we're dealing with a very large fire, and it's not just where it's burning, it's the smoke emission from this fire that's causing all sorts of problems, not just in the Pacific Northwest, but will eventually take all of this fire, and there are multiple fires going on, large fires in Oregon and parts of the Pacific Northwest that will push air quality, poor air quality over the northern tier, eventually into a place like the Twin Cities, as we watch some of the smoke and follow the jet stream to figure out where this smoke is going to end up. Of course, the worst air quality is really close to the fires, and that's where areas like Boise, we've had terrible air quality for the past couple of weeks, and there's not really any relief in sight. So as we watch the pattern that's going to take this smoke and it's going to travel all the way to areas like Omaha, to the Twin Cities, maybe even the Great Lakes, starting to see hazy skies in the morning or in the afternoon because of the fire and how quickly it's going to the smoke is going to spread across the northern half of the U.S. There's more fire danger today, red flag warnings, especially in Utah, areas like Wyoming, even up into Montana and parts of Idaho, where, Jen, you have to be so careful that no more fires start because they will spread quickly.
Oh, as we've seen. Now check out this time lapse from Tucson.
Because you can have storms that quickly make you have to change your plans and readjust to something else.
It's summer is such a difficult time, though, because the chance of rain, that probability of precipitation is tough. 50%, 60%. You don't want to cancel plans.
Right. And, you know, you and I have the curse of being a meteorologist. So, you know, you're looking at 300 hours out, like more than 8 days, trying to figure out, okay, am I going to have to change my plans?
Exactly. Well, you can go to Threads, send us your comments, also share your pics and video with us using the hashtag YesTV.
Well, let's go live to That's true. So it's at least a little bit of a cool down. Let's take you to some of our beaches and show you our forecast, especially for rip currents, because, you know, we still have a lot of people visiting the beaches trying to fit in those last couple summer trips before school starts. Right. And we do have a rip current danger, especially in the Northeast today.
You know, we've got this low pressure that's kind of spinning up here, making it not a great beach day. The rip currents are one risk. The other, of course, is the showers, maybe even some thunder and lightning like around Atlantic City. And so while overall water temperature is warm, I mean, this is a good time of year to go to the beach. Today might not be the best day.
No. And then we take you to Long Beach. Of course, that's what Jen was just talking about with that low pressure. It's going to be rain pretty much throughout the day.
Secondary one is so much fainter than the main rainbow, and the darkest part of the sky always in between the two. Alexander's dark band. There's your rainbow trivia. All right, let's talk about what's going on here as we see the next round of storms. First up is the tropics, and as we look ahead to later this week, we are certainly watching out for that potential of development. We'll be talking more about that through the show today. But I want to focus in on where we could see storms, the rainbow-producing storms, or maybe the strong winds or the hail-producing storms. We've got that risk as we get through the week in the eastern half of the country. This is how the pattern is going to set up this week, where we've got multiple rounds of showers and storms coming in through this area, through parts of the upper Midwest, the Ohio Valley, even down to the Tennessee Valley, and through parts of the Southeast. Repeated rounds of showers could add up to a couple of inches of rain. I know you feel it outside. It feels more muggy than last week, right? It's changed for sure. The moisture has come north, the dew points are up, and so we're going to be watching for that moisture available for our disturbances to tap into and give us some showers and storms. It could produce some heavy downpours. We've got that risk here at least through the midweek, with watching storms out there through Minnesota. Southward, we'll see a stretch of storms into Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, and pockets of the Northeast as well. But focusing on where severe weather could happen today into tomorrow, it's almost the same areas. This is tomorrow's forecast. Looks a lot like today. We're just going to kind of reset back up here to the north, and we bring in parts of Iowa, including central Iowa around Des Moines, and then moving it over towards western Illinois, including around Davenport. Then we get you from tomorrow morning into Wednesday, looking at all of the storm chances and where we could see some of the heaviest of rainfall. We're going to keep an eye on a zone that goes from eastern Tennessee, eastern Kentucky, up through West Virginia, into the middle parts of Pennsylvania as well. There could be just some scattered showers and storms that could drop some heavy rain. Wednesday's forecast, and it comes to the risk of severe weather. We go back to our next disturbance that's going to be dropping into South Dakota. That could bring some heavy rain chances moving into Iowa, into Minnesota, eventually into Illinois as well. And so it's a very off and on again wet week for you. Chicago, case in point, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday have a chance of storms. And it's hot and humid here, Molly. Speaking of the heat, there's a lot of that.
In the West, this is wildfire season, and we saw a slow start to wildfire season, but now it is picked up, and it has really picked up in pace and intensity, unfortunately. And a lot of resources in the West are being spread thin because we have so many fires that are erupting, and we have more fire danger on tap for today, especially in areas like California around Bakersfield. We get into Utah, portions of Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, all under a red flag warning for today. Meanwhile, where we have the fires already burning, air quality is just terrible. Air quality alerts for areas like Boise, Twin Falls. We get up to areas in Washington State, over into Oregon, where we've got multiple fires burning as well. Dense smoke advisory in Northern California, really close to Chico, where where the Park Fire is. That's now the largest fire in California right now. So it's been a mess as far as some of the wildfire danger. And there's no relief in sight. There's no big pattern change coming to the west that's going to provide us with relief from the heat or the drier air that's helping fuel some of these fires, and certainly no rain in the forecast. Meanwhile, the smoke emission from a lot of these fires is being spread not just across the Pacific Northwest, but it's going to have a pretty big footprint as it travels along the jet stream into areas like the northern tier, eventually into the upper Midwest, maybe even the Great Lakes and portions of the Northeast getting some of the wildfire smoke. If you're starting to see a little bit of a haze on the horizon, just know that it likely is from wildfire smoke. And this is just talking about no big change in the pattern that's expected, very likely to stay above average temperature wise as we start off the month of August. You see the big red area that's over the western third of the U.S., but really it's a lot of the lower 48 that looks like we're going to stay in that very hot pattern. Redding, California, take a look at your average high is around 100 degrees. Today, we're below that, but then we're going to quickly climb well above that by the time we get to Friday. So, Jen, bottom line, no relief in sight, and hopefully they can get some containment with these fires and start getting, at least a handle on it so they don't spread even more.
Right. I know it was nice to have a break in the weather this weekend here, but you see how hard that was like a camera shaking lightning strike and thunderbolt there, wasn't it? All right, so thunderstorm chances come our way as we get you out the door with everything you need to know. We've got July ending the same way it started, on a stormy note. Days of storms, ridge riders that we're going to be tracking out here, stretching across much of the northern tier and even extending into the south. So again, we got thunderstorms Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. You'll notice in almost the same corridor, the pattern's not changing a lot this week. A lot of the rain is going to add up in places too, with that risk of heavy rainfall coming in with these thunderstorms, especially because they are on repeat in some of the same areas. Rainfall in the forecast, 1 to 2 inches out here from Minnesota into Michigan, throughout Indiana and Ohio. New England, we've got some rain today thanks to a coastal low out here kind of spinning in, but eventually we get into some of this action moving from west to east as well. It kind of dives down over our big ridge, heading into the southeast with thunderstorms adding up. Now, in the forecast getting in through the end of the week into next week, it's expected to be wetter than average, possibly wetter than average across the east. Likely above average rainfall into parts of the southwest. That would be good news out here as we talk about how hot and dry it has been, of course, feeding that fire threat. So that would be something to follow up on, but possibly below average across the middle of the country. And we're watching areas that are in the storm track this week getting into that zone. So it might be a nice break here, Molly, especially for folks who are traveling and have to deal with all these weather related delays.
It certainly is. And for those that are just trying to enjoy maybe.
Well, thanks for getting your day going with us as we help you plan for all the big events in your neighborhood.
The Weather Channel has you covered from coast to coast. I feel like, Jen, you had a hand in picking the music today. It's like all the country music about storms.
Well,
it's on the playlist today.
Well, I didn't exactly pick it. Maybe I inspired it. But I tell you, the weather inspired it. I mean, we've had storm after storm after storm in some of the same spots. And we're on this storm train up here in the Midwest.
I will say, this line from Chicago all the way to St. Louis showing some signs that, there's pieces of the line that are trying to weaken, but still within that, you've got some strong storms, a lot of lightning too.
Yeah, winds can be 30, 40 miles per hour. Thankfully, it's not severe, but it's been holding together. So top part of it's falling apart a little bit. We'll see if it makes it to Indianapolis and Louisville, and then we got to find out what comes next after all this.
Meanwhile, we've got smoke and wildfires in the west. Smoke and air quality, a huge issue. Even when we're not seeing fires, like here in Jackson, Wyoming, nice temperature, 42, but you can see the haze in the sky, and that's a big concern.
With a temperature like this, 42 degrees, you would think that we would have a nice clear blue, perfectly blue sky. It's not the case. There's that milkiness to the sky out there, and that's due to wildfire smoke.
And so we're not only watching the wildfires, we're watching the tropics, we're watching the storms. A lot to keep track of today. So today's big deal looks like.
Thanks for getting your day going with us as we help you plan for the big events in your neighborhood.
The Weather Channel has you covered from coast to coast. And of course, we're following storms. We've been following storms this morning. They're starting to wind down a little bit, but this is just round one.
Yeah, round two gets going later today with another chance of severe weather, plus all these showers that have just popped out here, eastern Kentucky, eastern Tennessee,
North Georgia. We're starting to get some of those as well over to the Carolinas.
You got a plain old rainy day coming your way in Raleigh.
Right? It's, unusual to see one of those in summertime without the storms that pack a punch, too.
Exactly. You know what's unusual is rain in Seattle on this day in July.
And why is that, Jen?
Believe it or not, this is, and I was reading the Seattle Times this morning, this is the least likely day to get rain in Seattle. It rarely rains on July 29th.
And here we go. This is what it looks like in Seattle right now. You've got the cooler temperatures, you got the rain coming down, and this is one of the few spots right now that's actually seeing rain in the Pacific Northwest.
For 15 years, we haven't had rain on the state. I just kind of want them to keep the streak going. Like July 29th was such a guarantee dry, right, for so long.
I know people are looking forward to the rain, so, it's kind of a catch-22, but I'm with you. I think I wish, let's get it tomorrow so that the streak keeps it alive.
Exactly. Nope. Well, we'll get it today. And unfortunately, it's not widespread, and it's not really going to be much of a help for the firefight in the West.
Speaking of the fires are an issue for a lot of people, even far away from the flames, and that's because we've got smoke concerns. This is Jackson, Wyoming. 59 degrees right now. You can see some of the cloud cover, but look at that white haze that's on the horizon. That's wildfire smoke.
Yeah, I mean, we really should have had a perfectly clear blue sky today, at least to start. Of course, the clouds moved in too, but it's very milky out there with that background sky, and that's because of wildfire smoke from our western fires. And Canadian fires, too, are playing a role in bringing some of the smoke all the way through the Midwest.
All right, well, today's big deal looks at what's on summer's horizon. Because even if you're flying somewhere and the weather's going to be perfect, if it's not perfect at home, you might be delayed to get in there.
How often do you go somewhere maybe warm and then you come back and it's freezing and you don't have the right wardrobe on?
It's happened way too many times, more than I would like to admit as a meteorologist. Well, you can go to Threads to send us your comments, and you can share your pictures and video with us by using the hashtag YesTV. I'll check this out.
Let's head out to the beach. This obviously was an interesting beach day there in Rhode Island. We're going to head down the coast. If you're heading out to the beach today, we do have some rip current risk, moderate in spots out towards the Outer Banks, and also for the coastline from the First Coast, Jack's Beach, St. Augustine Beach, all the way down here to Vero Beach.
And even where we have a low risk, it's not no risk. So just be careful out there. Hilton Head Island, though, what a beautiful forecast for you. 85. We know it's going to feel hotter than that, but that makes it a great day to go to the beach.
Yes, it's a good beach day there. Myrtle Beach looking really good as well. Temps are going to be in the 80s. Water temperature 83. I was there earlier this summer. It is so warm in the water this year, warmer than average.
And you like warm water.
I know, but it felt like a lot for them.
If it's a lot for you, then it's definitely a lot for me. Now, the farther north you go, the more you're going to run into rain. But even at Virginia Beach, you're still looking pretty good.
Angel.